Or is there any discussion? Questions from the trustees? And so I open it up for public comment to in-person attendees and ask Jinder if there's anyone online.
There are no attendees at this time.
All right, so I'll close the public comment and we will call for is there a motion to adopt the minutes of July?
I motion to approve the minutes of July.
And a second?
I wasn't there, so I'm not in second. Second.
Okay, Sonny, thank you. Jinder, please call the roll call vote.
Trustee Ando,
Aye.
Trustee Cortez,
Aye.
Trustee Kyle,
Aye.
Trustee Lee,
Aye.
Chair Vadot.
All right, the next item is open time for public expression. The public is welcome to address the library board at this time on matters not on the agenda that are within its jurisdiction. Comments may be no longer than 3 minutes and should be respectful to the community. With that, open it up for public comments in person. If not, Jinder, is there anyone online?
No attendees at this moment.
All right, with that, we will then close public comment. The next agenda item is our other agenda items.
Larry, I
Sorry?
just before, because we didn't include introductions, which normally falls next, I did want to introduce John Stefanski, who's here. John is our new assistant city manager.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Yeah, it's great to meet you all. No, I met Sunny on my second day on the job. But no, just really happy to be here and look forward to learning about what you all work.
When did you start?
July 31st. So this is week 7.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, John, welcome. Thank you for your service, and nice to have, we have 2 right now, assistant city managers, so we'll have to be able to spread some of the load among the different committee activities in the city.
Can you just say a little bit about yourself?
So as assistant city manager here, I'll be overseeing our library department, disaster prep, parking services and sustainability, as well as we'll be serving as project lead coordinator on church scale citywide initiatives and projects. Prior to coming here, I worked for the city of Dublin for 4 years, and that was with the city of Hayward for 5. And live in San Francisco, but I'm looking to up to Brent, so I don't have to commute over a bridge for the first time in however many years. Yeah, hopefully soon. So, yeah. Yep.
Yes.
I think the introductions to this group will be next. Well, that's the next agenda item.
Okay.
Yeah, they're here for this.
All right, so our second agenda item is under other agenda items, and it's the library foundation support for new downtown library. Staff report by Jill.
Yeah, Jill will
Be here, okay.
speaking to the staff.
And presentation from the library foundation. And so that we're up to staff making a presentation.
Yeah, and Jill, I realize you can't see them, but Charlie, Joe, and Cheryl are in the corner.
I was gonna ask, I was like, should I actually present? Hi, everybody. I'm sorry I can't
The
be in
table.
person. This is a really exciting topic. So let me share my screen. This always takes me a minute. All right, can you guys see the correct screen? Just go to presentation mode. All right, and go back to the beginning. Okay, so we have our guests from the foundation here. Thank you guys for joining us. It's nice to get different groups together. I'm just going to give a little bit of background about our different support groups and some of in the downtown library and some of the work that's led us to this point, and then I'll let the foundation take it away. So the topic is just the Library Foundation and their support for a new downtown library. So I'm sure most of you are aware, but or maybe not. I wanted to share about our different support groups for the San Rafael Public Library. So we have 3 support groups. We have the Friends, who run a used bookstore, and they also do lawn sales, and they raise money through book sales that go a really long way in funding our library enrichment. So they go towards programming, towards outreach, towards usually like kind of new exploratory collections. They always fund pretty much all of our summer reading. So they play a really integral part of the library. We also have the Board of Trustees, which of course you're all aware of the role that you play, but it's just an advisory board appointed by City Council, comprised of members of the public. And as it's an advisory board, the role is to review library business and operations, offer feedback, ask questions, and as it's a public meeting, any member of the public is always welcome to join and do the same. And then we have the foundation, and the foundation is a nonprofit whose sole mission is to assist the city in an effort to pursue a new library building. So I'll continue talking about the foundation now. So the foundation was founded in 2004, I think, with some of our current foundation members and the then director, Vaughn Stratford. And it's always been comprised of community members with also representation from city council members and staff liaisons. The work that they do is to actively raise funds and to advocate for a new library. The funds that the foundation is raising isn't really necessarily to put to a new library. We need a lot more than probably the community could raise in that way, but it has been used for things like community surveys, outreach, advocacy, educational campaigns. And then most recently, well, they've been very active lately, but earlier this year, the foundation hired a film crew to create a short documentary about just the need for an expanded library in downtown San Rafael, which I think they might be sharing with you in a bit. It's pretty fantastic. And then they also use some funds to do like an advertising blitz. So leading up to a poll that was done later, probably some of you even saw it, the film was kind of pushed out on all different social media platforms to San Rafael residents. I wanted to give a little timeline of just the San Rafael Public Library now, our buildings. So in 1909, the downtown library, the Carnegie, was constructed with funds, of course, from Andrew Carnegie. In 1960, there was an expansion added to the north side. So where the main entrance is now is part of that expansion. Then shortly after, in 1976, the addition, the lower level of that, was closed off. That used to be a parking garage, and they closed it to create what is now the lobby, the children's department. If you ever go into the children's room, it's pretty evident that it used to be a garage, because even in just those 16 years, it was found that we had an increasing need for public library space. So that's the downtown library. We haven't had any big modifications since then, except for in 2008, it was like retrograded and I think new windows were put in, but no expansion of space since 1976. But then in 2006, Pickleweed Library opened in the Canal neighborhood as part of the Alboro Community Center. And then in 2018, Northgate branch was opened in what was formerly a Payless shoe store in the Northgate Mall. So that's kind of the timeline of our buildings. And where we are now is that the city just continues to explore options for increasing public library space in San Rafael. And that's where we've been for quite a while. Okay, so the city has also commissioned a number of different reports and studies. In 2017, the city commissioned an outside research firm called Group 4 to do a study of our current services and facilities. And one of the findings was that San Rafael was severely lacking in library space for a community of our size. They found that for our population, we should have between 40 and 45,000 square feet of usable library space, as opposed to the then 14,500, because we didn't have Northgate yet. But now we have 17,500 square feet across our 3 locations. So we have increased it slightly, but we're still obviously very insufficient in that area. And then, of course, as you can imagine, the report also found that our existing Carnegie building has some substantial issues across a number of different areas. And following that report, the city commissioned Nolan Tam Architects in 2019 to create a library facilities planning study to propose long-term options for expanded library space throughout all of San Rafael. It's pretty comprehensive. You can actually find all of these studies on the city website going back to 2003. And these 2 in particular are really worth a good look over. But focusing on downtown, the 3 options that were identified as potential sites for a new library building downtown were an expansion of the current Carnegie site, which would mean building it up because there's not a lot of space to build out. A new facility located in what is now Boyd Park, and also a new combined library and community center in Albert Park, where the B Street Community Center currently sits. The city has also commissioned surveys and polls by outside research firms to try and figure out potential funding avenues for a new library project. The most recently, just earlier this year, we commissioned Godby Research to perform a split sample survey of likely voters to assess whether we would have this community would support a parcel tax measure to fund a new library downtown. Some more information on that. So about a little over 600 likely voters were surveyed. It was statistically valid, so it took into account all different demographics. They were split in half. Group A was surveyed on whether or not they would support parcel tax to fund an expanded and renovated Carnegie building. And then the other half, Group B, was surveyed to gauge whether they would support a parcel tax to fund a new combined library and community center at Albert Park. So 2 of the options that Nolan Tam had suggested. That's an important distinction is they weren't aware that there was another option. So they were being asked a lot of questions, but they were being surveyed on one option, Carnegie or B Street, not which would you prefer. And the survey did find that both options have viable support, but through different avenues. And that brings us to the foundation. The foundation have expressed support for the Albert Park option, and they are considering pursuing a citizen-led initiative to fund that project. And leading up, as they're considering that, they have been presenting their perspective, getting feedback from different stakeholder groups, including the Friends, who they just had a conversation with, as well as, of course, the Board of Trustees. So tonight, Catherine and I invited representatives from the foundation to present to you all and any members of the public who wish to join what their kind of vision is for this combined library and community center. And I don't know if we want to open up to comments and questions, or if we want to just move on to the foundation's presentation and then field questions related to both. It's up to you all.
Now on that before we get to that. If that's okay. Still on the, well, we know I've been here for most of all, a significant portion of all those surveys and community outreach and all the designs and all the other things. And so the last I heard was that the city wanted to pursue solely the Carnegie piece, and that it was like this huge issue. If you remember, there was, you know, the foundation was upset because the city had chosen the Carnegie, let me understand, the city was, the foundation members were upset because the city had chosen that without telling anyone when there were all those options available. And so then you were moving on that, and that's when you were done those surveys on just doing Carnegie. So I'm kind of confused on how we're back, and I'm not saying, I'm totally open to hearing about this because it keeps going back and forth and flipping, but I'm just curious, I'm like, where does the city stand on this? Because that was not where we were last time.
So I want to clarify that city council has never given any direction on this either way, they other than collecting information. I think the in 2022, the city did another Godby research to try and gauge support for a transfer tax. And the results of that were not promising. And we did, at that time, we did another split sample about Albert Park versus Carnegie, and there really was not a lot of difference. But what we did see, where we did kind of in like some of the detail of this survey, because as a transfer tax cannot just be for the library, a transfer tax is a general tax. So it was asking about a lot of different city services, the library being one of those. What we did see was that people preferred fixing what we had versus building a new structure. So at that time, we interpreted that as, well, the support for this transfer tax is pretty low anyways. And if we even, and a transfer tax only requires 50% because it is a general tax. To even get to 50%, we felt like we had to go with if we were going to pursue it at all, which we ended up not doing because the numbers really weren't supportive that we could get even to 50%. It seemed like the Carnegie was going to be the only option. What we found when we did this most recent survey is that there is the difference. So Jill mentioned that there's the Carnegie and Albert Park were surveyed separately. The support for both, it is challenging to get to the 2/3 number that the city would need to, if we put it on the ballot, to be a tax. For the Carnegie option, if there is the way that the survey is done is they ask, like, would you support this tax? And then they read, and you say yes or no. And then they read all of these arguments in favor of the measure. And then they say, would you support it now? And then they read all of the arguments against it. And then they say, would you support it now? And so for the Carnegie, at that second time, after someone had heard all of the arguments for it, we could maybe get to that 2/3. But we would have to have, so basically what that tells us is we'd have to have a very strong pro campaign. Once people heard the negative arguments, it dropped again. So we would have to have no organized opposition. And then we can maybe get to that 2/3. For Albert Park, we never quite got there. And I think the foundation is going to speak probably a little bit more to kind of some of the nuance that we saw in terms of. Well, I guess I can speak to it, but that Albert Park, the way it went was Albert Park kind of started lower. When people heard the positives, it jumped quite a bit. And then it didn't go down as far when they heard the negatives. So, and throughout the whole survey, the margin of difference between Carnegie and Albert Park was kind of within the margin of error for the survey. So I think
You're talking only about the 2023 survey, right?
this
Not the other
most
survey.
recently, I'm talking about the 2020.
January,
Yeah.
right? January.
It was done in June. It was done in June. Ooh, there was one done in June 2023. So that's all to say, I guess this is a very long response to your question. But just to be clear, this, I know you kind of started with, the city said we're going for the Carnegie,
My
that's the
recollection
only
is very
option.
much that.
And I think that was because of what we were seeing out of the 2022 poll, but that was never something that was just kind of us sharing. It doesn't look like the B Street's gonna get the support based on this poll. We now have new poll data saying there is an option, but only if it's done through the citizens initiative. The city would not be able to get to the 2/3 point with the Albert Park option. But all of that said, city council has never formally weighed in, and they are the ultimate decision-making body on which direction the city would go for.
It was before your time, but it was a city council meeting where we were there and Henry was presenting and they asked them to move forward between the options, and the option was to focus on more fact finding. Cheryl, you remember this?
Yeah.
You said move from those other two options and solely focus on more fact finding on this. So that was, I don't remember what year that was.
On Albert Park, so Carnegie.
On the Carnegie.
It was Albert Park, because there was no, so what they, I think
Yeah, that
at
was
that
my memory as
time, it
well.
was to go get more information on Albert Park, because there had been past studies done on the Carnegie, but nothing equivalent on Albert Park. So the council said, go back and get more information, which is what generated Nolan Tam coming into the 2019 actual concept. But
That
then
was-
that never went
But then
before council.
we did that whole concept design.
It
and
never
so
went
that-
anywhere.
yeah.
It never went before council.
Yeah, that
So-
was October 2019, and there was a staff report that was presented, I think, by either Henry or Susan to City Council.
It was never presented, Jill.
Oh, right, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There
It
was a
never
staff report that
council.
was written, which led to the conceptual design.
Council has they're not weighing either way. I'm just asking, like, we put so much work into many
know.
different options, so I guess before, I'm just curious, there's no weight on the council saying. Actually, our preference is one or the other.
Not
That's
that-
sort of the
nope,
question.
Nope,
Not at this point.
not at this time.
Okay,
So yeah, here we still are.
okay, all right, okay.
No, I did 5 different surveys over the last 10 years. I read 2 of them in UK region. I did 17 one. I could dictate and printed out all the entire page and read through. And the end of that survey, in-depth survey, I don't know how much papers I handed out to my neighbors and friends and, avid library users. And the conclusion was clearly the residents in that survey that was, they prefer the Carnegie location. It was very clear. And at the end, it got nowhere because the result was not preferred by whoever decision-making party in the policymaker was now accepting that result and go move on with it. And then there's another survey, and I think this year's survey, I did a screenshot of it. And having studying the surveys, how to market the consumers, having learning about this in college, I could see what is going on. But I'm also very much concerned because I'm a library user. I come here every week, upstairs, downstairs. I live just above the hill from the Albert Park, and I'm very well aware of the B Street population and the traffic, the congestion, and the Safeway right next to it. I fully understand that. rec center needs a remodeling needed. But we have to, our whole neighborhood deal with the unhoused population in homeless encampment right behind the Safeway, where the entrance of the baseball field. And library is open to anybody. It's open to anyone walks in. We have to welcome them, no matter what they're wearing, what their background is, what race is. I'm 1000% supporting that as a library's role. But the location at Albert Park is very gloomy to me at this moment, because what we are dealing with right behind the rec center right now. That's going on. And I'm walking there every day, talking to people living there. I'm sorry, it's just something that it just changed the last 2 months very drastically. The behind the baseball field. Anderson Drive, just drive there every day. People walk there, and what's going on, and what is the library is gonna be become. Once it's a new build, it's been built. We are expecting to be more and more coming in every week. And I'm counting numbers of the tents. And they are all coming to the library. What's the closest proximity from their current location?
Can I comment? Sunny, I can appreciate your concerns, but I do know populations change, environments change, social services change, outreach changes. This, if you're considering homeless encampment, or other people, actually, the library is a wonderful place for people to get jobs, to use the internet, to read, to be safe. It is a place for everybody. You know, I don't know how many times I went to the community center with the school dance and with the performances in Sarah Bell and baseball games at Albert Park. Environments and people and population change as we do. The city does more outreach and housing and other social programs. I think we're honestly, wherever the library suits itself, it's going to be wonderful and a beautiful environment. You know, Safeway, heck, you know, there's Montecito Shopping Center next to Sarah Bell. So you could say the same kind of, you know, that's integrated community that has shopping, parks, senior center that's going to be built 2 blocks down. You have Kaiser, you know, that's a community. It's alive and well community. And you're going to have social structures that aren't, you know, preferred, let's say, but that's what the city's going to work on, right? So anyways, I would love to hear your presentation. I think it's a moving target, and I'm sure you have a lot to say about that site.
We have thoughts.
Catherine, just one thing I wanted to add about the surveys, just because I think it's important. When you compare 22 to 23, the difference too was we did an awareness campaign and community outreach. So there was a little more education when the polling took place, which I think just shows that there was more interest. But when you compare and look at those two, compare and contrast, I think the second, the 23 one had this awareness campaign. And, I think we did see some more interest because of that, because people were starting to see that here are some of the potential solutions.
Absolutely. And I think, yeah, I mean, the education campaign that the foundation put on definitely had an impact. Are the people who did the polls, they've been polling for this, they're kind of the firm the city uses a lot and have been polling on this issue for decades. And they said this is the highest level of support they've seen for a library tax in the years that they've been doing it. I can speak to Sunny, I believe the one that you mentioned, that where it showed a significant preference for the Carnegie. I know that one was, I believe it was the foundation or the Friends commissioned that one. It wasn't a city commission study. And I know it was done by the chair of the board at the time. And I think it just wasn't statistically valid. It didn't kind of have that robustness that the ones we've commission sense have. I mean, I think, you know, there's always a place for that sort of information, but that is why the city commissioned some more of the statistically valid that really tried to get at the demographics of who's gonna vote or something like this.
I have to
I
disagree.
I
with
think
that. It was done by someone that he runs a company that does surveys, so he does do that, and there was a council member, we had a whole committee that created all the questions, like looked over the questions. We had community questions, so I do have to disagree with that, because there was a lot of input from various people, I think there was a foundation, a friends, and me, someone from the council who had all done that, and that was his job, so and I do know that, so I will disagree. It's just
Sure,
respectfully
yeah, I
that-
think, okay, anyway, I wasn't here, I just know what I've been told, but that, yeah, anyways, we can. Move
Yeah.
on
Yeah,
to
we are
to the
here
meat, to the meat of
now.
of
And the foundation
presentation.
is here now, so maybe if you'll introduce yourselves and talk a little bit.
Yeah.
about it.
So some of you know me from being a trustee, but I'm Cheryl Lentini. I was a trustee, my term ended this year. I've been a foundation board member for about, I don't know, like 9 years now. And I'm an architect in San Rafael. I have my own business now after working for others. I'm, committed to trying to see our way to a new library, because I never thought when they asked me to be on the board, I'd still be here 9 years later. I served on the Critical Facilities Committee even before that, several years before that, when that was first formed. And the first time there was the ballot measure for the public safety building that included the library that failed. So I was part of that initial committee way back. And so, yeah, it's been a long time. I was like, really? Every other community can get a library built. What is going on? So, we are here because we kind of feel this is we're finally sort of again, poised at this unique moment in time where it's sort of like, I don't know, it almost feels like another last chance, or another 10 years is going to go by in the blink of an eye. So that's kind of why we're here. And Joe and Charlie are with me.
Good evening, and thanks for your time. Joe O'Hare, and I am a Library Foundation board member for about the past 7 years. I've lived in the community for 33 years out in Peacock Gap, and most recently was a retired CEO of Bibilon, formerly known as Whistle Stop. And I've got a neat little building going up called the Healthy Aging Campus that is going to open at the end of this year. That's a few blocks away from where you mentioned, and we're very excited because this is. So I'm used to doing these projects are tough, but I'm here to and committed to try to help this same outcome successfully that we've done with our Healthy Aging Campus and with wildcare.
With Rob.
That's my project. I'm designing that project, so yeah.
You didn't say you were an architect.
I'm an architect, yes. I do a lot of work for nonprofits, for institutions. Wildcare is my project along with the partner I work with, and finally made it through planning approvals. So, it's also part of the reason I've become excited about the Albert Park possibility, which I'll share with you as part of this conversation.
So are you a developer?
I'm an architect.
I mean, Cheryl,
Yes.
you are an architect and
Yes.
Joe's.
I'm a retired. I retired. I ran Bibilon Whistle Stop.
Oh, you are like a CEO of the.
Yes, I was CEO, and that's the building. Yes. I did retire 3 years ago. So. I'm sorry.
And my name is Charlie Litchfield. On 7 years. Attorney here in San Rafael, so do real estate, construction, you name it. But got recruited onto the board a long time ago to redo the website. And I ended up sticking along for the ride. So been through this for a while, seeing all the permutations, and yeah, I think it's an exciting moment. So get back to Cheryl.
Yeah, I mean, we thought we would start by showing you the film that we did have out there. I mean, maybe some of you or all of you saw it, but it's a good refresher for us too, to see it again. So can you call it up to play it?
Jill, it might be better for you if you're able to play it, just because of the sound.
Yeah.
In here, we would get.
Sure, yeah. Give me a few minutes.
Are you still sharing your screen?
Oh, I'm still sharing.
Yep.
Okay, let me stop sharing my screen, and I will pull up the video. Okay, hopefully my internet won't cause any problems. Just let me know if it's freezing or. Wait, Catherine, should I leave my, yeah, I guess I should leave my microphone on then, right?
Yes,
Okay.
I believe so.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Public libraries are the hub of any community because it's a place where people can come to get information and knowledge and resources, and it's also a place for community connection. Public libraries are more essential than ever before. We're not just a building that houses physical items, we're a place for human beings to come and get services. And we are also on the cutting edge of emergent technologies, and we always have been.
Once I came to California, San Rafael, and I thought as libraries, the fantastic place.
I never had a library where you could bring your computer and have somebody help you place an order.
Para mí son de gran importancia porque es donde yo encuentro el material para yo poder hacer mis pinturas.
It's a literary nutrient because I feel like I get fed here. I love coming to the library because it's somewhere peaceful and I can read, like really read. I can get into it. The San Rafael Public Library has been the heart of our community for over 100 years. In 1909, Andrew Carnegie funded the building in our downtown area. In 1959, the library was expanded, and that was the last major addition of usable space, except for in 1976, we enclosed the expansion's parking garage to create what is now our children's area. Obviously, our community has changed drastically since then. We went from around 20,000 residents to over 61,000. We're much more diverse. We have different needs. And if you can think about what the world might have been like in 1959 or remember what it was like, that's the world that this library was built for, not the one we're in today. People that don't use public libraries might think that they're outdated or unnecessary with Google and Amazon, but they're actually more important than ever. And they're not just for people that love books and reading. We see hundreds of patrons coming into our doors at our 3 library locations every day. We can check out video games to patrons. Patrons who love movies can use our streaming services or get DVDs. We have museum passes and park passes for people to check out. We also have free public computing and Wi-Fi, digital resources that support students and local authors. And we have art, literature, and cultural programs for people of all ages. Our staff are doing amazing work. They're having to be really creative, given the limitations of the building that we have. I can only imagine how much more we could offer if we had a building that supported our needs.
Our 3 locations total 17,500 square feet of floor space, which, with a population of 62,000, works out to less than 0.3 square feet per resident. A recent analysis commissioned by the city recommended that we have at least 45 to 50,000 square feet of library service space, equivalent to about 0.8 square feet per resident. If we compare that to our neighbors, it's clear that we need more space. We need to practically triple our square footage to come in line with other libraries in the Bay Area and help our library staff to innovate, create more meaningful programs and community partnerships, and move with the times from this century into the next. We took a trip across the bay to the Hayward Public Library, which was completed in 2022. When you walk in, you're immediately struck by a harmony between visitor experience and the feature-rich design, which opens up to a new frontier of possibilities for thriving community life.
Over here is City Hall, where we use the council chamber to host our story time because we don't have space in our building for programming. As you can see here, we have a tarp. This leads down to our mystery section, and we have a massive leak in our roof, so the tarp helps to protect our collection. This is our children's room. This was part of our 1959 expansion, and as you can see, it actually used to be a garage. Here is a back exit. You can see we have books and also boxes that just showcases our lack of storage. This is our staff workspace. It's very cramped. We have lots of people bringing in cards. Here's our printer. This is my office right here. Here's an aisle of our adult fiction collection. It's very tight and cramped. The shelves are very high to house all of our books. They block off any natural light that might be coming through the windows. This houses our whole teen collection here. There's no space for teens to do any programming. There's barely space for them to study. So you can see the teen collection spills out into the adult area as well. These are our public computers. The screens are out, they're cramped. It's not a great place to get your work done. It's not quiet. So we have local artists that use our space, and it would be so great if we had space where we could showcase the work of local artists, and if they could also have a space to do their work.
We asked some of the San Rafael staff and patrons what they would like to change or modernize.
This is our office where we sometimes have as many as 4 people in here, doing all sorts of different things, including holding meetings, eating lunch, preparing for a program, and it's very tight.
At our downtown library, we have no event location. We have to throw people out of the reading room to have an event.
If we had like these little maybe bean bags where we could sit.
This would be awesome.
If we have another small place for adults who want a quiet space for reading or to do some study.
Some people don't have a place to have a job interview.
We don't have any set meeting rooms right now.
And so we're just outgrowing the space. There's no room for us to expand anymore. And if you can't expand, you can't attract more patrons.
The role of a public library is to bridge inequities in our community and connect our residents to technologies and other resources that they wouldn't otherwise have access to. Unfortunately, our 19th century library building is not supporting our 21st century needs, and with more space, we could do so much more. Our patrons love and use our downtown library, and many people don't know what a modern library can and should look like, and that's what our community deserves.
Thanks for showing that.
You want me to pull up your
Yeah, I
slides?
think that would be good, so we can refer to some things that we did pull together. So I think kind of where the foundation is at this moment is, we put that film out there, then the new survey was done, after the publicity campaign, we saw the movement. And in kind of looking at what we've seen as, the library need and the options that have been studied between Albert Park and the Carnegie site, which is kind of what it's come down to. We have some serious concerns as a foundation where, our goal in this process to support the library was, we know we were going to do a capital campaign, and we've got to convince private donors to donate to a project. And we're just finding it more and more difficult. How are we going to build excitement about an expansion and in addition to the Carnegie, that based on the studies done, we have serious concerns it's not going to be enough the day it opens, that you're landlocked. What you're faced with is, tearing off the old additions and putting probably a 3-story skinny addition across the back. And maybe we could go ahead a couple of slides to see that. So when Knoll and Tam did their 2019 study to look at the different sites in San Rafael for both the branches as well as for expansion downtown, they studied from multiple initial sites. They zeroed in on 3 sites, one being the Carnegie, one being Albert Park, and one being Boyd Park. During their process, Boyd Park was pretty quickly dismissed. You could really only get about 20,000 square feet. It was at a very difficult corner. There were a lot of drawbacks on it. So that was pretty quickly put aside, and the other 2 options were kind of taken to sort of their full analysis. So on the next slide, just capturing more of the detail from those 2 comparisons. When we look at the Carnegie portion of the study, you know, they're projecting that you could bring that library up to about 27,000 square feet as the downtown component of the total, that total 50,000 that was recommended. And that would require, you know, you demolish the additions that had been put on later. You would build this new addition behind, you know, sort of the original Carnegie structure. It would need to be 3 stories. It probably wouldn't want to be taller than that, given sort of city zoning, given where it is. But you can see that you're really sort of pinched into that area remaining behind the existing Carnegie structure. And it would require also building a parking deck to accommodate the parking demand that would be required. So, you know, we look at that and we have some concerns about if all you can ever get is somewhere in the neighborhood of, you know, a 27,000 square foot facility, you're really running short of being able to meet that total 50,000 square foot recommendation, because this would rely on, you would have to get more at Northgate, somewhere in the neighborhood of 11,000 square feet. You'd have to do the maximum expansion at Pickleweed, which they identified as maybe bringing that up to about 7,000 square feet. All good things. But if any one of them fell short, and if you ever, the community grew even further, you're really not planning for the future. So, you know, we saw this and it's like, hey, I'm an architect. I think this could be a really fun project and what a beautiful thing you could do. I mean, it's every architect's dream to do, you know, adaptive reuse and addition. But when I look at what this means for our community and would we be right back where we are today, you know, looking back at the people from, you know, 2023, why did you only build this much, like this 1976 edition? So when we look at the next one, when they studied Albert Park, and this, you know, is the deeper dive they did in 2021, you know, we saw this, and as a foundation board, we became much more excited about something like this. Kind of thinking about that part of the city and kind of all of the potential as more of like the social center, the social hub of San Rafael, and just the ability with so much land to kind of do whatever you want and team with the community center to get a little bit of, you know, extra bang for the buck. We already have that proven model over at Pickleweed and the Albert Oro Center. It's like, we know it works. We know it works for San Rafael. You know, what does this look like? So, you know, this is kind of where Knoll and Tam went with a potential concept on the Albert Park site. So if we can look at the next slides.
Would that be a tear down then?
Yes. So they started in the study when they were just doing the comparisons. They thought, well, we could save the big room at the community center and just build around it. By the time they got to this deeper study, I think that it pretty much, they decided, you know, it's not going to work. And I think that they really then went forward with this kind of all as a new facility. So that you could really make it what you want and make that large community space, you know, really modern, the exact size, shape, configuration that you need. So that this particular study does not assume that you keep any part of the existing community center. You basically absorb it into a totally new building.
Except for the garden.
Except for the garden, except for the garden.
Move the little piece of the garden. Have they got?
They talked about like,
Move up.
I think somebody investigated at the time with the family, like, would it be okay that if we maintain the garden, could we move it somewhere else? And the family was amenable to that. Yeah. So, you know, this is kind of what they came up with. And in this case, you know, the total area of the combined center would be 43,700 square feet. The library portion solely dedicated to libraries, 23,000. Community center would be 13,500, but then there's the additional 7,000 or so that would be shared. What came out of the working committee that worked with Knoll and Tam was also the request, like, could you at least put in the budget, you know, what it would take to add an additional story? Because if we are concerned that we might never get enough elsewhere, maybe we want to maximize that, add another story. So, you know, you can kind of see the figures that have been brought forward to 2023. You know, you're looking at, I mean, really like an $80 to $100 million project if you're looking at a 3-story building potentially. But, you know, this is every study the city has ever done has led us down, you know, it's pretty clear from the comparisons that a community of our size, this is really what we should have. So, you know, we look at this and then I kind of, when we start to think about the whole site, if we can kind of go forward and look at, these were some of the images that Nolan did as part of this study of what it might look like. Again, it's just their first glimpse. This is very much Chris Knoll's style. So you're going to get a Chris Knoll looking building. But if you can sort of scroll through these are just some ideas of based on what they came up with, what a concept could be. A view in the inside reading room on the upper floor. And so when we kind of stepped back and started thinking about this area, you know, this is just like a graphic that just kind of shows we've got, you know, high schools across the freeway on the other side of town, but nearby we have Davidson Middle School, we have Laurel Dell Elementary, we had the former Short School, we have the Child Care Center right there in Albert Park, we have the new senior housing that's being built up the hill. You know, we do still have Marin Academy. Further out, we have Sun Valley. You know, we're right in the heart of the community. We know we've also got, you know, the baseball park, the tennis courts, the bocce courts, a playground. We've got the creek and, you know, with Wild Care also, you know, they're going to remodel. There's just so many things. And I mean, we didn't even put everything on here that happens, but you're close to 4th Street, you're close to the transit center. You know, it really, we felt like it has the potential to kind of be re-envisioned as kind of another heart of our community and revitalized and energized with so many different assets, you know, for the residents of our community that we just started, the more we thought about it since the idea was first presented by Nolan Tam, I think the more our group just got really excited. And we also thought about, if you just go forward, something that I think I only learned, and the next one, I only learned by working on the Wild Care project, but the city had actually commissioned a full study of restoration of Mahone Creek. And that's the segment that runs right by Albert Park. And they commissioned a study, they did a full EIR on it in 1998. And this was just someone's vision at the time. But I think it speaks to how much more, you know, that area of town could be. And if you did take the time to, you know, build something like this joint center, really, you know, restored the creek front, made it much more pedestrian friendly in there, I think it would be a very different community than, you know, what people have been worried about and seen, you know, with the encampments and, you know, the nervousness around all of that. But it would be a center that would begin to welcome everybody for every kind of activity that, you know, we might engage in with each other in this community. So I think we see it and we get really excited. And we also feel like it's something we could sell if we are an arm of support for the library that is meant to raise private funding. We feel like we could get people excited to donate to this and to support the funding necessary because it is, as you saw, I mean, it's huge. It's enormous. So that's, I've done all the talking. Joe and Charlie can join in, but that's kind of where we've landed. And we've decided as a board that we understand that the Citizens Initiative is that avenue that we could potentially use to move this forward. And so we're at a decision point as a foundation board to decide, do we want to do that? And what would that take? And, you know, these are our sort of conversations to help us make that decision, you know? So I don't know if you guys want to ask any questions now, but I know Joe is going to talk, Joe and Charlie are going to talk about, well, what does it mean to do a Citizens Initiative? And, you know, how would the foundation do that? And what would it take? And what would we be looking for? So
I think we should probably finish the foundation presentation and then kind of
Okay.
because it looks like we've got public, so we should do.
Yep, okay. So I don't know if Joe, you guys want to talk about, yeah,
Do you
so
want me to leave the presentation up? Or?
I don't know.
Is there one more slide?
No, I think oh, yeah. So one more thing. Yeah, this is good to mention. We can always come back. We are mindful that, if this were to go forward at Albert Park, there's constantly been questions about what happens to the Carnegie. And so, this is an example up in Snohomish, Washington. Their Carnegie, they kind of went through the same process. They built a new library. And then, a whole sort of nonprofit was formed around the Snohomish Carnegie and what to do. And they basically ripped off their additions that have been built up over the years, restored their little original Carnegie jewel, and they've made it an event space that the city both rents out and then, offers up for free. It's now right kind of in the heart of where they do their farmers market here in the summer, right around this building. They've kind of revitalized this area of town as well. And it's a really beautiful restoration, and it's really nice to see that it's now become this really vital part of their community. So we're also mindful that any kind of proposal has to address what happens if the library is no longer at the Carnegie. So we've also been thinking about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, that would be, if you had asked me years ago, I would say the same thing, like, let's build on what we have. But when you look at the plans, I mean, 80% of the existing library needs to be demolished to accommodate that. We're building, a 27,000 square foot building around a 2,500 square foot reading room that's right smack dab in the middle of the plot. And you can't go the other direction toward the oak tree. You can't go towards City Hall. You are locked into that corner of the lot that no matter what you do at scale to do that type of addition on the Carnegie is not going to be realizing the full potential of what a library can be for the city. So I love the Carnegie building. I think there's a lot of potential for it, but for the size of our city, it probably can't service as a library much longer than it already has. So what we're exploring right now is called the Citizens Initiative. It's a relatively recent form of ballot measure that the process for us, if we decided, because as we talked about the polling, the most recent polling basically put the Albert Park option within the margin of error of the Carnegie after the educational, running through the pros and cons of each one at the end of the surveys for both. Like we've said, the Albert Park started low, like 55% was either somewhat or strongly in favor and 15% undecided. By the end of it, the Albert Park option was up 60%, with around 10% undecided. So what the pollsters say is that, well, you would have to get 70% of those undecided voters to get over the 2/3 hurdle. So it probably can't be done. In contrast, the Carnegie started at 62% support, and then running through the pros and cons, at the end of the day, once people had learned more about it, the support dropped a little bit, but it was still 10% of people undecided. If you got half of them to support or vote yes, you could maybe get the 2/3, but not guaranteed. If there was organized opposition, if there was an economic downturn, any one little thing going wrong, and you're not going to make your 2/3 majority. So what we're exploring is the Citizens Initiative that gives us that puts the onus on us to gather signatures, in this case 10% of the registered voters in the city. So there's about 37,000. We need at least 3,700 signatures plus an overage in case they're duplicates or disqualified signatories. So that puts us around 4,200 signatures that we need to gather in a 90-day time period once we have drafted the ballot measure, submitted it to the city for approval, The city has 30 days to respond. However, it can't respond on the merits, only on the technical form of the resolution that we've submitted, as long as it is a legal ballot measure and fulfills the statutory requirements. Because we have the signatures, or if we get the signatures, then we return those to the city and it becomes mandatory that they put it on the ballot. However, once the citizens initiative makes it on the ballot, it is a simple 50% majority. And even in the worst polls for the library, there's always been the one exception being the transfer tax. People really did not like a substantial transfer tax on real estate. However, in any other context, and our likely mechanism, this would all have to, we're not to the point now where we know what the tax mechanism is going to be, how many dollars, but it's most likely we'd be going for a parcel tax. And based on the numbers that we have, it could be something approaching $100 a year per parcel, with all the standard exclusions for senior citizens and that are on all of the educational and library existing parcel taxes. So once we kind of get closer to that point, we would set that amount, and that would be included in the ballot measure before we get our signatures for our petition. So that's kind of the quick and dirty of how to do the citizens initiative, if that's the route that we decide to do. So the pros of it are you only have to get the 50% majority when you're on the ballot, so that gives you a very good shot of succeeding. The hard part is you have to get over the hump of 4,000 plus signatures. So that is what we kind of look at, because nothing could be worse than going for it, not getting the signatures, and then you know, having egg on our face. So yeah.
So I just want to add, I think to your original question, you know, what's the city council's, you know, position or decision? And having gone through a fairly extensive project for a long time, what I learned in doing the Healthy Aging Campus here is that it's the community that really tells the city council what they want. And I think that that's what I think the citizens initiative, you know, the city is faced with a lot of things they have to do. It's up to the community to really say, this is what we need, and see the vision for it. You know, there's a lot now being talked about loneliness and isolation as a public health crisis in the world and in America. And what we're trying to do is come up with solutions, which really has to do with community gathering spaces and public spaces. And the library is the most trusted place that has been done, and certainly the community center. And as you know, we've got such a nice example. Look at what happened with Pickleweed in that community, when that community center went in there, and then the library went in there, and the library is very busy there. And so we've got examples, and we saw in the documentary, as we looked at other communities that really have addressed this, or are addressing this issue, not only for the 21st century, but community gathering space. And I think Cheryl showed that this, we believe, is could be a real game changer for what we're trying to do, particularly with all ages that are facing loneliness and isolation in these communities. And so I think, to the point that Cheryl made, you know, we're lucky, we live in a wealthy community, we live in an area where there are philanthropic individuals that will support these things. And I think that this type of a big idea, and looking at the future of what this community needs, really led us to say, this is what we're willing to take a time and effort to do. It's a big job, but I think that it's one that we feel is very important. And I think it's the community that's going to tell the city council, this is what we need, and we're willing to support that. And that's where we've really reached our point in this whole journey.
So thank you for the presentation. Very informative, and gives us a lot of things to think about. So the The next step would be to invite questions and answers from the trustees on the presentation. I have my own comment, which I really like what you're proposing. And I'm an absolute, I'm supportive that's the way we want to go. There is one aspect, and maybe it's getting too far in the weeds here, but we've got a existing parcel tax, parcel D, I believe, which expires in 27. We're getting about $1 million from that a year. Obviously, if you want to, if we as the city want to continue that tax, we're going to have to go out to the public to extend it. And this is more of a strategic kind of issue, but how do you, show that or kind of bring that to the public in a way that makes sense? I assume, I don't know what our operating budget is from the million as opposed to the total budget, but I assume we don't want to lose that million. At the same time, we obviously want a new library, and community center would just be perfect, and I think a good selling point. So that's
The
my
question, like how we differentiate it in the camp.
well, I think it's, this issue of people getting tired of additional taxes, and it's hard when you have a current tax that you want to extend. People aren't thinking, oh, well, this is just an existing tax. It's like, oh, it's another tax. And I think there has to be some strategy involved with how we, and this may be, again, getting too deep in the weeds, but how we sell that going forward, along with what we want to do. And I think it helps that the parcel tax is a separate kind of issue that you can show on the side, whereas this initiative would be more of the people or the citizens coming to forward. But again, two things on the library. I just throw that out there. I don't have an answer. I don't have a solution. It's more strategy.
And this, I think you're shooting for 2024. The parcel tax will be up for renewal 2026. They wouldn't be on the same ballot.
Right.
And I think that probably in the campaign, if this were to pass, then we'll also need to look at it in when we come for the parcel tax in 2026. But they're very distinct. The parcel tax, obvious Measure D is specifically for operations. It cannot be used for infrastructure, where this would be an infrastructure only. But yeah.
Yeah, I think my concern was more that they might coincide or come close to each other. And if the thought is we don't go out until 2026, because it doesn't expire to 27, then I think that.
I was on the campaign for Measure D, and I remember that at the time it was renewal, which was in our favor because we could point to in our marketing that, hey, this is just continuing what we already have going on. But one of the harder sells about Measure D was that it's for operations. It's kind of the behind the scenes things. And, the average voter might think, well, shouldn't the city take care of that out of their own budget? So, we kind of ran up against that. And, if all goes well and we're successful in this, I think that there's definitely much more concrete aspects to the ask that we have that, when they will be passing by, people will see the construction getting underway. It will be something very tangible and big going on. So I think that there's the ability to separate them and definitely market that differently as far as when we get to the renewal campaign, that there wouldn't be an extinguished appetite for supporting the library. Because I think on the renewal did better than the initial operations parcel tax, and it passed relatively comfortably. For the 2/3 majority, that's only like 2% above. But yeah, definitely well noted.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions from the trustees?
I have the same question, but maybe this is totally, because I don't understand it, but Cause the parcel tax gets like what, 1.2 million a year, so obviously this is like an $80+ million budget. So how does it actually work? Like if the thought is, okay, let's say it's approved, but you're getting $1 million, like. Is the ask also, I mean, obviously you're gonna fundraise, but like, how, at what point does the movement happen? Like, is it the parcel tax is approved and then what? Like, and then you have to wait for the city council to say, maybe they're gonna give general fund, like, I'm curious, like,
No,
what does it
but-
take to get there?
Drafted so that bonds could be issued on that income.
Yeah.
So let's say counting on, $2 million a year of parcel tax income, which will allow us to borrow 60 million today
Right.
and pay that off over 30 years.
Okay, I had no idea.
So, yeah, whatever
Yeah.
that number comes out to, and that's
Yeah.
what we're going to get to later in the process, because yes, that is something that has to be on the petition, has to be on the ballot to say, you are paying X dollars per parcel, and we, just like we saw in the Measure D, we did not, there's a reason it's retail that it's like $59 and not 60, we're trying to get, we don't want to go over 100 because that
Yeah.
gets people thinking in a different way about it. So, yeah.
That'd be a lot of the work we'll be doing if we go forward, that we've got to do over the next few months to both, work on educating the public while we're getting ready to do this, and work on that language, like work on the numbers, work on the language, figure out exactly how that needs to be crafted. So, there's a lot of work ahead. I think the timeline that we've been understanding from our consultants is we would want to kind of get moving on the signature collection, like right at the beginning of the new year to meet the deadlines. That's kind of the latest we could start it. So that basically gives us now till the end of the year to decide, are we going to do it or not? Do any research or consultation or get any advice we need to craft the language, have the city review and approve that language to go out to collect signatures. So it's a lot. And, so that's kind of why we're here. We talked to the Friends yesterday. We're talking to you guys today. We're going to talk to Parks and Rec Board next week, because we also, if we're going to do it, we also want to know, all the various support groups, do you all support it? I mean, we certainly wouldn't want to be going out and have all the other groups opposed. It's like, well, there's no point then. So that's also part of why we're here, is just, we've got to make the decision, and then we've got an awful lot to do, that if we pull the trigger, we also need help. It's like as many people as can help out with this effort is really going to be necessary.
And the ballot for March.
The ballot, so the
Or
petition
November.
collection would start in the new year, because we have a May deadline we would have to meet. Is that when it has to be?
Sometime around that. Yeah, no, we should be going for the November.
Yeah,
election.
November election. Yeah, not the March. Yeah, it'd be for November.
But thank you. I
Experience
just want to
show.
say thank you for your presentation. It
Yeah.
was very informative. Appreciate your backgrounds. I mean, you guys are all well suited for being on it. That's amazing with your perspective and what you know. And I appreciate, I'm a social worker, and I appreciate, your perspective as well. Absolutely. I was talking to my friend who's in Sacramento, very involved with a library, retired nurse educator, and the same thing. We were talking about the community. We were talking about, yes, the isolation, but you're bringing in, there's the childcare, and then you're bringing in the seniors, then you're bringing
Younger
in
generation.
absolutely middle school. So
There's all the components around this
Yeah.
campus.
Yeah.
Typically, you don't have, it's just like an interesting when Cheryl put that overhead, the look there, you could just envision what this could do. to the community. And just has so many benefits for all segments of it.
so yes, you've got my.
It's just the experts will tell you, if you want to get something like this done, more voters than the presidential election years, typically when they vote, are in pretty good moods to look at things that are going to improve a community. So that's why we're not rushing, but we're targeting the 2024, because you have a higher voter turnout, and typically they're there and they're willing to, look at an initiative like this. So we've talked to the experts, and that's why we're on a tight timeline to figure this out. And this does cost money, and our foundation is, we do have money, but what we can and cannot spend on an initiative like this, and the city has to be fairly firewalled from this. So we're still trying to figure out how we can finance this ourselves the citizens initiative, because it is fairly expensive, as you can imagine, to gather 4,200 qualified signatures is gonna take a village to do.
Exactly.
And the work, the legal work to prepare the initiative, get it in and follow the process. It's not inexpensive. We're committed to do it, but we're still having to make sure we can figure out how to finance this expense.
This is all percent funded by Library Foundation.
Well, we're talking about the initiative itself to apply and process it. We are trying to figure out, can we use the funds that we have in the foundation to do that? We have to get legal opinion, and that's what we're waiting for ourselves, but
Yeah, we're organized as a 501c3,
Right.
so donations to our foundation are tax deductible, which generally means we can't go out and support political campaigns. We can't donate to candidates. There are certain restrictions on what we can do as a nonprofit. However, there are many things that we can do with a citizens initiative. And, you know, we're not asking, and I know there's probably not much we could ask, even if we wanted to, from the city as far as support, because it is a citizens initiative. It has to be on our end as public entities. But yeah, that would be, we do have a way to use kind of the money. We've been raising money for 20 years now. We have a little war chest collected, and there are ways that we can utilize it, and it will likely be enough to support the citizens initiative. So we do have the means to do it. It's not easy, but we do have the means as a foundation to finance the initiative.
Is it like a big project developers will donate you guys, kind of pushing you to go with the building because they could benefit from?
No, I don't think so. It's more the problem is that once we start raising money to support the initiative, they are no longer tax deductible donations. So a lot of the wealthy donors and probably a lot of the people that send us money, you know, as a charity, their donations are tax deductible. Once we're collecting for a political purpose, you know, it remains to be seen how many of our donors would, you know, shift their support from our charity to our political, you know, campaign for the initiative. But no, I mean, the plan is not to solicit or accept large donations from and you know, we're all as a board independent. I mean, even though I'm an attorney, I don't do ballot measures, so we're hiring somebody else. I mean, none of us stand to gain personally from either site location, and no one. The vast majority of our donors are, you know, small library supporters that have been contributing to us for, you know, over 10 years. So that's mostly who, you know, supports our foundation.
And really, if you think about it, the property owner is the city, and the city would be the developer of this project. We're trying to figure out how to finance it for them, but they cannot be involved in this side of it. But if we raise the money, then the city basically, you know, does the development and does the typical work that Cheryl and I have done with other organizations, but this actually is the city. So there aren't any, we're not looking at developers or anything like that. It'll be the city will have to decide if we are successful, who they're going to use and there, because they're the property owner.
I'm just curious, does Carnegie still give money towards libraries?
Well, you know, we had another one of our board was with us talking to the friends yesterday, and then he reminded those in the room that, well, you remember some years back, we actually contacted the Carnegie Foundation to find out if they would help us. And they said, oh no, your Carnegie basically isn't good enough. I'm not sure what words they used, but they declined to offer any financial support for any work on our Carnegie in any way.
They said it was a bad example.
Bad example.
of Carnegie.
Yes.
So
They declined to offer additional financial support.
Many countries.
Oh, God,
200.
hundreds. Yeah.
But a lot of them are doing what just as examples.
Yeah.
We see that as being a good way to preserve this treasure in the community. It's important.
Is there anything officially we can do to support you, or you're coming to us to look for at this point?
Yeah, I mean,
Just
really,
more information.
yeah, we're here to share. And I think Cheryl said it very well. I mean, we're willing to take the lead on this, but to do this, we're going to need support and need groups to help. Certainly, the Friends, the Trustees, the Parks and Rec, but then we expand it out, and because this is going to have to be a community initiative. So we just wanted to see where you guys were on this. We've got a board meeting on Friday. We're still gathering more information, but for us to make a decision, I think Cheryl said, we just need to know that are you guys good with this sort of direction? Because we're not sure what can be done without this at this point for all these years. We kind of, like you, we've reached that point where, this is the shot we think we should take. So we're looking for you guys, yep.
I would
We like
also
this
just
direction.
say that
So-
once that decision is made, we're gonna have to be very careful.
Yes.
The city can't be involved in a citizens initiative, and so we'll talk with our city attorney, and as individuals, you all are welcome
Right.
to support in your individual capacity, but because the board is a, city council appointed,
Yeah, we're just here for feedback.
Yeah,
that's really.
feedback, do you guys feel this is something you could support? What do you think about what you heard?
Yeah.
I mean, would you want more information, or would you encourage us to provide more information as we go forward? I mean, whatever comments you want to give us, we just want to be able to take that in and use it as, part of our decision-making process.
Many more explain. I have too many questions. First of all, how we remember is that, Arbor Park was off the table. That's what we understood. And that's what I kind of, this is done deal for you guys. So you're going for it. There's no consideration reevaluating. I mean, I just don't want to waste time.
No, we haven't voted as a foundation to proceed.
How many members are around?
Around 10.
10, yeah, something like 10. Yeah.
But you guys are the top 3?
No. Gary Reggiani's our president.
No, we've been working, I think, most closely as we volunteered as like a little subcommittee to,
You're not paid.
No, we're not paid. No, but we as a subcommittee.
Paid as much as.
Yeah, exactly. We helped, get the film going and the education campaign, and, like, we volunteered as our little subcommittee to help shepherd these latest efforts. And we also volunteered to be the ambassadors of our board to go out and talk to all of you. So, I think what we can say is that our board did vote that we are unanimous in supporting the Albert Park direction. Whether or not we go forward with this citizens initiative, that's still the question that we're debating as a board.
Any of you guys live near B Street?
Yeah, I live over in Bret Hart neighborhood. And like I said, I've been working with Wild Care for years now. So I am constantly walking through there. I play bocce, I've been to community center events. I've been in that area a lot. We constantly walk through there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And other members? I don't know. I live like 25 years, last 10 years become really, I have overseas. I'm not born here in US, but overseas I have this family members or in city planning, traffic engineers, 100 million population cities. So it's driving me nuts because when I see traffic is congesting, I know why, because it's not something you learn from looking at the book. It's just people like some different brain. And I just calculated, okay, there's a signal now there's a left turn. I'm stuck behind the left turn car. Oh, now I'm stuck behind the right turn car. Now there's green light. You are not passing. You are stopped at the signal for 3 times sometimes. So I travel downtown. I walk. I don't really bike, but I ride car to get things done. Struggling mother with the kids and family members. when Santa Fe to the public safety center, I don't know what measure that was, raised a lot of money, great building, beautiful building. When they put the markup of the imagination drawing of the building on the corner of D and Fifth Avenue, I looked at it. Why are cars going two ways? It's a one-way road district. I looked at it. Somebody just didn't pay attention. Draw the CGI drawing of the building with a two-way road. There's no way they're gonna make a district two-way. That's something you can't do that in the city in this scale. And then they put the building in, and I realized, oh, they did all the public meetings and stuff like that. But they plan to put the two-way district because the fire engine could go in and out each direction. Changing district to two-way really devastated whole downtown Santa Fe, in my opinion, the traffic flow. So I'm just saying, if you put in the big building like library and rec center to want to host 40,000 population, 40,000 square feet of space, you have to think about what that traffic that means on that street. And Arbor Park Lane is one way, it's not two way. Only car could go that way. Woodland Avenue is curved. It's not grid system. It's a curved. Octavia, right there, Trinity Churches. I can't even right now turn towards the Safeway from Octavia because it's a strange angle, like 120 degree. It's not straight road, so you can't see the cars either way coming, and all the cars parked along the road. This is what I'm talking about. You cannot build such a huge building right at the B Street when you do not understand it's not grid system. The below that Second Street is one-way road. Third Street is one-way westbound. If there's any congestion happening on second and third, nobody could get turned around. And now B Street, they're turning into two-way. This is a disaster about to happen. And I've been speaking about this in any other meetings, council meetings, different meetings, multiple. It's the calculation of the cars that really regular citizens should not ever need to do this. But as a planning person, understanding what kind of traffic you are drawing to this street need to be calculated. It's not something Nolan Tam could do this because I consider architect is something different. You might have to live there, almost like on the street, to see different time of the day. When kids get out at Davidson at 3:30, come on out and try to drive on Woodland Avenue and B Street. What is happening? And you can't even get through the Lindaro and Woodland Avenue at the corner of Lindaro, Woodland, that where the Davis Middle School meets. You can't get around. People could get out maybe from Arbor Park Lane to out, but somebody coming from the Lindaro, they cannot get into the B Street, period. And Arbor Park baseball field is like shaped like this. It's not a grid shape. Front of a B and Anderson Drive is like this. There's no connecting road between the where the library and the rec center is trying to be in together. It's harder to explain. I'm sorry. I'm just this is something that as a citizen who understands architect and engineering and city planning, how the road works. That's just.
I think your point is well taken, Sonny. They, you know, they
I
need to
apologize for.
they need to think about the traffic flow that they're going to create by putting this there. And I think that will be something that is part of the planning process they'll have to look at, because yes, it will definitely increase the amount of traffic and the way the traffic comes in.
Yeah, because I personally, pedestrian as a crosswalk, when the one way road become two-way road. Now I'm like hitting by both direction, turning lane cars.
And I think you made your point. I
Okay,
think that.
Okay,
my-
thank you.
my-
Julie understood.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think we had many conversations about like
Did.
city walkways, like
We
when we
did.
were in the planning stages,
Yeah.
we had. We don't live, I don't live there, but Cheryl lived there, and she had many conversations, and so there will always be voices. And there of like how to create like
Yep.
walkable spaces for kids, people are very concerned about how kids
Yep.
got there, and so.
And
like,
crossing
all that,
traffic,
that
yeah.
thought was.
Yeah.
too.
Well, and if
And-
any project went forward, it would go through the city's full planning process that would require probably a full EIR, which would include traffic analyses, parking analyses, all kinds of environmental analyses.
She's not, I no longer trust them anymore.
No, I-
Sorry, because of what happened in DNC. So that's the only reason, because I'm talking to a traffic engineer constantly on the phone all the time because of
So
this.
DNC
Okay.
is really a
Yeah.
safety issue, right, for the fire department?
No, it's not, it's made it more dangerous.
Well, I understand what you're arguing, but that's why they did it, for the safety of.
No, what I'm trying to say is when they plan the building, they should have a thought about this, somebody who has a more better understanding of how cities traffic flow. They should have kept the door on C Street entrance like prior to before.
Oh,
Well, we're not talking about that.
Yeah,
but-
so
I do
just-
wanna, thank you, I do wanna comment that, you know, I think for me, I'm excited that you wanna take this on, because this is a beast, and the city has been talking about this for years, the library needs this, the staff need this. Everyone's outgrowing the space, there's mold, there's rain, there's all these issues, so I know on behalf of the staff and the community, and like, this is the finding a space and having the right space is important, so I thank you for taking this on, and I'm supportive of like just getting the space, whatever it looks like, I mean, hopefully, if this is what we're choosing, then this is what we're choosing, you know, and let's just move forward with it, so, you know, I do thank you for that, and happy to support it, and happy to have offline conversations of some ideas, I might have a, you know, community thing. I did just have a question for Jill and Catherine, sort of, where do we ever land about the pickleweed piece, like of the expansion of pickle?
That's a really good question, because that actually came up in the Friends discussion yesterday. And, you know, so much focus is spent on the downtown library that, but I know, like me personally, I know when we chatted, you know, and even when I chatted to just friends of mine around, like, I don't know that we could put anything forth that didn't include the expansion of pickleweed as part of the whole measure, because part of the concern is, again, you know, if this is like the one shot, you know, recommendations were made about, you know, libraries across San Rafael. We really should make sure that whatever we propose is a solution that's comprehensive. Now, we've got to present that to our board, we've got to discuss it, we have to work on the language, the costs, you know, all of that. But I think certainly my starting point that I will be advocating for is that anything we put forth bundles in the pickleweed expansion as part of it, because the project was about library space in San
Right,
Rafael
yeah.
needs to be X in total. And if we believe the right solution is that it needs to be two parts, then that's what we need to go forward with. And I just don't know how we could like completely ignore that community as part of this when the, you know, the need, the recommendations, I mean, you know, it's just, it's so evident that that would need the same attention at the same time.
And
So-
equity and inclusion.
Exactly. I mean, just, to me, it just seems like, oh, no, that, of course, that's part of it, but I also know that the conversation has been so focused on just downtown for so long that this is also gonna be something we have to hash out in the next few months. And, you know, I think part of what we have to do in the next few months is all about outreach and education too, to, again, find out what the community will support, the more they know, you know, make sure that what we think is the right, you know, solution, everyone actually will buy into. So there's a lot to do.
Okay. No,
I'm
it's good
already
to-
tired.
No, it's good, it's good to hear that it might roll into that, I didn't know if
Yeah.
that was sort of just off the table at all.
So that was part of the study, but since we have that presence at Northgate and part of that development going forward is continuing to commit to maintaining a library at Northgate. That's really the avenue that, you know, the city is making sure that is maintained and continues to work with the developer on seeing that that's like a permanent solution. So that's, you know, we're thinking that's taken care of.
Oh, with the Carnegie, this old library doesn't go more than 3 stories. I think on 4th Street now, there's 7-story buildings.
Yeah, and
So it
you know, that would be
doesn't-
something certainly we'd be looking at again, and if a project went forward, someone to be looking at, you know, like the zoning right around there. It's a little bit outside the downtown center development zone, which is higher, zone for higher buildings. I think it's right outside of it. I haven't checked recently, but I know when Nolan Tam did it, they were checking on that when they proposed, you know, this is what it could be. So obviously, if that were the direction, you know, whoever was looking at the design would do whatever they could to squeeze every possible, you know, inch of space out of it. But at the time of the study, when they checked on all that, 3 stories is really where they landed.
Additionally, for each additional story, we need more staff.
Yeah.
We need to have
And
staff
then that
members
was the other
for-
discussion is, you know, it's hard enough to maintain a multi-story library facility. And, you know, there's just exponentially, you know, if you go more than 3 stories, it becomes such an operational burden as well. So, you know, there were many factors that kind of landed it there.
So I always wanted to have a city hall. It's really getting old. Like whenever I come in here, like, old this big elevator. So I'm like thinking, why don't they just library and city hall together, like build it like a big, large, huge complex here? That would be so nice. Like, I don't know, lots of meeting rooms and library combined with the city hall, new city hall.
So you, like, I'm not even envisioning what that
I'm
would
just
look
saying
like.
the city hall needs a new building. Then doing it with the library together, combine it.
So
Make
I,
large
Well, they're already
complex.
doing that. The children are meeting down in the
I
city.
mean, I will say I've worked on several civic center projects in my career and, so I've almost never seen that combination because it's usually a very difficult combination to pull off. Both from a functional standpoint in how circulation and who comes to visit the different buildings in the civic center, but then also funding sources, supporting his new city hall, like just never pulls well.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't want to be dragged down by.
John, we didn't know you were joining when we did the documentary to show Avery. So
I know,
that's a
so,
beautiful
yeah, it's,
facility
yeah.
and it's serving the community very well, we understand.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
Are there,
Yeah, let's go. My time, I'm the tax measure passed.
Okay.
Yeah.
are there additional questions or comments from the trustees?
I just want to say that 600 members of a likely voter survey in June. I think it's a very low, the number. It personally, I have so many friends that ask about it because I did the survey and everybody said, oh, that was a real thing. They all looking at the text message, oh, it's a scam, you know. Who is this? There's a name of the person who's asking, sending a text. So who did you get? Like a
So
Jennifer?
Sunny, the survey that Godby that we commissioned Godby to do wasn't opt-in. It was statistically valid. So I think they had about 622 was the final number, and that took into account like all different demographics, making sure that they had people who were likely voters from all of the different age groups and other demographic factors. So the point of the survey was that it wasn't just like anybody who's a library supporter can opt in and give their perspective. It's like, what would this actually look like in an election?
And that the 600 number is the statistically valid sample size for a city of our size.
A lot of people didn't do it, that's what
Well, they got enough.
Yeah, we
to
did get
do
enough.
oh,
A sample size. All right, are there any other questions or comments from trustees? All right, we will now open it to the public for public comment, in-person attendees. Any comments?
Yes, I do. It's through the mall.
Oh, 3 minutes, I'm sorry, right, I'm sorry, of course.
Okay, now, what if?
I'm sorry, could you say who you are?
Richard Sears,
Okay, thank you.
live next door, very fond of the Carnegie, and I believe that not a whole lot of imagination and a lot of negativity has been put into that. Measure C was ostensibly a measure to, at least in large part, that the people that voted for it were aware of the deficiencies of the building, and the deficiencies would have been fixed, like the roof has been way for decades. And I think that's just strategic neglect on the part of the people that are responsible for the building to have an excuse to say, well, this isn't right, or this isn't right. Historically, the designs of civic structures have been put up for bid. Now, Nolan Tam is a favorite son, and they have very sort of bordering on brutalist architecture. It's just ultra sort of personality-less, clean, white, open spaces. I don't believe that you're going to get the support that you think you're going to get for a community center / library down there. I'm always surprised at just what the lengths people will go to get their name on a brass plaque. I believe that
1 minute warning.
You know what? I think I've said enough.
You said you had some questions. I'm sorry, I didn't, if there was a
Okay.
question in there.
Would the Library Foundation, if they found out from a large enough backlash of residents that they really do think that the feng shui here is proper for a library, and satellite libraries, a number of them satisfy the needs of the community. Now, 50,000 was a pre-COVID number for square footage, and a number of the library sites in San Rafael were not included in that calculation. Metrics were flawed. I think that there's been too many questionnaires and questionnaering involved in trying to gather support to
10 seconds.
For you to have any confidence that there will be support for your initiative. And I think you should keep an open mind about opening up a design among contractors, designers.
3 minutes.
That are outside of Nolan Tam.
Thank you. I don't see any other members of the public here. Are there any people online, Gender, who want to make a comment?
No online attendees.
All right, with that, then I will close the public comment. And with that, we close that particular agenda item, the third agenda item we have. And thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Joe, good to see you.
Yeah, good seeing you, Mary. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
There, another city, I can't remember the city, they restored a very old Victorian library and they had something behind gorgeous. I was like, oh, look at this.
There are many.
So, we need some.
Yeah, find me. Catherine knows how to find me.
Okay, we need to move on. So the last item is staff liaison report. And Catherine, I guess that's in you and Jill.
Gonna take
Right.
a quick one.
Sure, yeah, we'll be quick. One quick update is I think I'd updated you last time that we are in the RFP process for the automated materials handling system. We're in contract negotiations with a vendor, and in addition to the AMH, we're also looking at getting some holds pickup lockers for the Northgate Mall. So that would allow patrons to have their holds kind of like Amazon lockers, and they could pick up their holds anytime the mall is open. So not just aligned with library hours. And I think that's it from me.
I have a question to Jill last time that when
RFID?
Yeah, RFID is used, how do they check the return item is in the good condition?
They don't care about it, they said.
Oh, so the I followed up with that. It'll just be something that libraries check for upon receipt of their deliveries. So now we're checking for condition before we check items in. The process with the AMH will be the AMH automatically checks the item in, and then when the libraries get the items, they'll flag for any damage at that time. And same with us, like as we're putting things on carts, then you'll notice for damage.
And then I wanted to let you all know that on Monday's city council meeting, the stage 2 contract with Nolan Tam for the further like construction document development is going to be on the consent calendar. So that's the plan that you were all presented with in July. That's kind of taking that to the next stage to get it ready for kind of get those designs ready for. So that will be on for the city because it's a certain dollar amount for the city council to approve on Monday.
Oh, it's not the July meeting, so it's to do what part of the?
So Nolan Tam came and presented, this is the $3 million, the small kind of,
Oh,
just the improvements to the roof and a little bit of interior design.
That's
things
moving
like that.
ahead and.
That's moving ahead, and the next stage of the contract is being approved, is up for approval by city council on Monday.
Any other comments from the trustees on presentations, on this presentation? This, either Catherine or Joe?
Not related.
Okay.
Earlier, to presenting the whole about the current condition of history of library state. I think she mentioned 1960 that they do the north side of the main entrance.
We did an expansion.
The addition was in 1960.
Okay. But she mentioned something about the north side had a entrance.
That was 1976 with the entrance and the children and the garage.
She just said that's where our current entrance is. That's the north, that's the portion that was added was where our current entrance is.
So the current entrance is west side.
But it's in just the north section of the building.
Section.
Yeah, so
where right now the circulation is collected.
Yeah, so the Carnegie portion is to the south, and then the addition is to the north. But I mean, it goes from east to west.
Yeah, I thought it was always the front entrance right now. Sliding door is the carriage, like the horses with the carriage coming in that direction, or 1900 or something. No, okay. No.
Maybe
The
this
original
is-
entrance was on the south.
Okay, south.
Maybe Sunny, this is something you can take up with with the staff.
Yes.
And so that you understand,
Yes.
at least for your perspective.
Curiosity.
Yeah, I think that's important. Any other comments from trustees? Then if there's no one, looks like our in-person guest has left. So Jinder, is there anyone online who'd like
No.
to comment? I'm assuming not.
No, sorry, I think you didn't hear me. The answer is no.
Okay, thank you. And finally, item number 4 is commissioner reports. Any brief reports on meetings, conferences, and our seminars attended by the board members?
Oh.
I guess that's us, yeah. Yeah. Well, yes, it can be us. Please. Oh, okay. I would like to say that I appreciate the city, and I know we're a part of this, and particularly Parks and Library, attending the movies in the park. Getting that civic part of that out in the community, I think really was a nice gesture, and I think people appreciated at least the one at Peacock, which was just last week. So thank you for
Yeah,
doing
that's
that.
Well,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the community liked it. So, any other comments? Okay, then.
I would just like to know, in the future, maybe Jill, I know you're sick, so we don't have to talk about it now, but I would love if we could. We did this a while ago, we would rotate locations, so we could at least see, especially with new people, go to Northgate and have a meeting, go to Pickleweed and have a meeting.
so the challenge with that is hybrid. We are not able to offer hybrid meeting at those locations. Well, we could schedule a tour where we don't discuss any business at but we just go and look
I
at
didn't
each
even think about
location.
that part of.
But yeah, unfortunately, we don't have the hybrid set up, but we don't really have a space to.
Yeah, well, yeah, at Pickleweed, you can do hybrid.
We do have we have a
Yeah.
meeting room at it's in the Borough Community Center portion. Yeah, I will warn you, parking is incredibly difficult there.
Yeah.
So,
With the soccer season.
Well, and especially
I
at
know
the time of night, at 6, it would be impossible to find parking in my experience, but that's a good idea, Jamie. Mix it up a little bit.
yeah, we can.
It doesn't have to be soon, I think it's something to consider, we used to do that.
I was reading the library staff members and members are to travel to different facilities and
Yeah, that's what we did a tour.
or
The July meeting, instead of kind of reviewing business, we toured different parks. So we could do something like that.
yeah.
We could just do a tour, but there's fewer library facilities than parks.
Librarian actually gave me I show you how it works. So he gave me a quick tour and I was really like, this is like a really better place for the staff, for the librarian. So seeing it actually makes it very realistic where you guys will work and the spaces of libraries, the downstairs and the alleyway. I'd love to have something like that in the future. I have attended several library meetings and events in the other libraries in Marion County. And one thing I was very, very impressed was actually Naked Truth, the storytelling event in the Mill Valley Public Library in July. And it was about 500 people inside, and there's 200 people waiting outside to get in. They do it twice, or they used to do 4 times. It's very well-known storyteller from all over the Bay Area. Josh Harley is the guy who is actually leading the group, and it was an amazing event. And I just love storytelling. But it's a real story, and there's a speaker, 5 different speakers actually spoke in front, and they served wine for free for everybody. So it was and real glass. So librarians are serving wine to the veterans in their room for Friday night on 6 o'clock. So the next one comes, I'm on it, and I send all the information to join me for the storytelling. And I also went to Tiburon and Belvedere Library had a basic accessibility training for iPhone users, and they do the Android phone users for seniors who has a disability. So this is a state-funded program by state hired employees going to different. So this particular presenter training person for almost 2 hours was have done it in Fairfax Library, San Anselmo, Belvedere, Tiburon. So she was giving all the information. So contact our library to have it's about the deaf, blind, the elderly, the hard of hearing, and the state has a funding that provides free phone, free speaker, loudspeaker phone, and even phone line is free, and all the amazing stuff that I didn't know. So I carried this on to Jill. So maybe one of the staff looking into contacting the community might need these services.
Thank you, Sunny.
Hearing no other comments from trustee, staff, or people in person or online, I will call this meeting adjourned at 7:58. Thank you.
Yeah, everybody. Good job, Larry. Thanks for coming, John.
Letter, Jill.
Yeah, thanks.